I guess it's about time I got around to playing this game. I mean, Employee of the Month looked like it was going to suck, so why should I go into this one with bad expectations as well?
Look at those rocks just sitting there. They think they're...
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be great.
Nuclear. It's pronounced nuclear.
So around 4 months ago, I posted a review of SpongeBob Squarepants, Employee of the Month, a PC point-and-click adventure game. While I didn't hate it, it wasn't exactly the kind of thing I want to play again. Ever. Lucky for me, there are actually 4 of these things, and 2 of them were included in the pack of video games I got Employee of the Month in all of those years ago. So now that it's SpongeBob Month, I think it's the perfect time to review the SpongeBob Squarepants movie game for the PC, and see which of these 2 SpongeBob point-and-click adventure games in the Splat Pack is better. Wow, that was a really specific comparison. So unlike the last game, which had the burden of coming up with its own original plot, this one simply covers the plot of the movie itself, which is why I'm not even going to bother mentioning the plot this time around. What is surprising is the lack of cutscenes in this game. Sure, they were horrible in the last 3 point-and-click adventure games, but they were kind of like the Zelda CDI cutscenes of SpongeBob. They were terrible, but that just made them all the more funny.
You know what they say, all toasters toast toast.
In fact, we have to convey the story this time with these stupid slideshows with narration over them. How am I supposed to make jokes with this kind of material? Another shocking revelation was how good the graphics were this time around. Besides the occasional bugs, this game looked great. And not only does it look good, it also proves that the horrible buggy graphics of the last 2 Splat Pack games weren't my computer's fault. When you get right down to it, the basic gameplay is virtually identical to the last game, which was virtually identical to the gameplay of any other point-and-click adventure game. Not that it's necessarily a bad thing, it just means you'll be
looking around, finding stuff, giving someone stuff, getting stuff from someone, going somewhere else, giving that stuff to someone else to get more stuff, and just doing a lot to get a lot of stuff.
While the last game had a total of 4 chapters, this one has 8 of them. In theory, this means this game should have 4 extra chapters, but when you consider how most of these chapters in this game are much shorter than the ones in the last game, they're really much closer in length than it seems. I would say that, all things considered, this game is still longer than Employee of the Month, just not that by that much. As I said before, this game follows the plot of the movie, but apparently the plot of the movie wasn't enough to fill an entire game. Sure, the GameCube game based off the same movie managed to fill up an even longer game using only locations and ideas from the movie, but this game felt that it needed to include 2 chapters that were never a part of the original movie. The first chapter is SpongeBob getting ready for his day, the second chapter is Plankton stealing King Neptune's crown, the third is SpongeBob finding the paddy wagon and getting the keys back from the Thug Tug, the 4th is Mindy escaping from King Neptune's castle, the 7th is SpongeBob and Patrick retrieving the crown and returning to Bikini Bottom, and the final chapter is SpongeBob getting a guitar for some stupid reason. Now, you may have noticed that I skipped over chapters 5 and 6. That's because they're the chapters that have nothing to do with the original movie, and they're quite special, so we'll get to them later. Let's start by going over each chapter in the game before we get to more stuff. The first chapter is a decent introduction to the game's mechanics, and I kind of enjoyed it. SpongeBob is getting ready for his day, and you have to overcome one of the game's greatest challenges, getting SpongeBob's teeth brushed. Unfortunately, there's one part in particular where you have to scare away this repairman that is a little too cryptic in my opinion, but it isn't too bad. The next chapter involves you playing as Plankton, where you break into King Neptune's castle and take his crown. This chapter is also pretty good, but there's this weird mini-game where you fly to King Neptune's castle. There are way too many of these random mini-games in this game, and none of them are very fun. The third chapter is just really dull. You have to find the paddy wagon in the first half, and then you get the key back in the second half. Neither of these parts are difficult, and they're just padded out with long-winded dialogue and annoying long cuts of SpongeBob walking between locations. Ugh, why are these even here? Chapter 4 returns you to King Neptune's castle, but this time as Mindy. I like how you get to explore areas you couldn't as Plankton, and I enjoy the puzzles this chapter provides, despite it being on the short side. And Chapter 7 and 8 are just way too short. Chapter 7 consists of like 6 screens total, and took me around 6 minutes to complete. There are barely even 5 puzzles in the whole chapter, and Chapter 8 is not much different. There are more screens this time around, but it's really anticlimactic. They just dump a ton of exposition on you at the end, and they come up with a lot of random science in an attempt to justify why the goal of this chapter is getting a guitar.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me he has sub-crypto alpha wave enhancers built into a cranial matrix?
I don't know. Am I?
Dude, this is serious, man. We have to find a way to channel the power of rock to disrupt his mind control signal.
These 2 chapters are way too short, much easier than the rest of the game, and overall not very enjoyable. But now, let's talk about chapters 5 and 6. Remember all the weird stuff I talked about in Employee of the Month? Well, this game has been pretty normal until this point, but these 2 chapters change all of that. Chapter 5 involves you doing 2 things. Solving the mystery of who stole an old lady's pearls in a rundown hotel with only 3 people in it, and going through a cave of trials owned by a creepy old fish.
I'm 52.
That has a pool that lets you see into the future.
Squidward,
What do you want, SpongeBob?
can you scoot over a bit?
No.
Hey, Squidward,
What now?
go towards the light.
Then in Chapter 6, you have to settle a dispute between a fish chiropractor and French protester invertebrates. And in your journey to do so, you meet a bird with a top hat who dropped his socks into a hot spring. Alright, so this game doesn't get anywhere near the weirdness levels of the last game, but in many, many ways, that's a good thing. While chapters 5 and 6 are weird, and I don't like how nothing that happens in them happened in the movie themselves, they aren't really that bad. They're pretty long, which I definitely like. The mini-games they do have don't really take you out of the experience, and they're at an alright level of difficulty, besides one part in Chapter 5 that I think is a little bit too illogical. The writing is just about on par with the last game. There are some pretty bad jokes.
Yes, well, good luck. I'm sure you can't possibly fail.
Hey, you're right. Thanks, Squidward.
But most of the writing is alright, and some of the jokes were pretty funny.
We have never lost a case, or even taken on a case. In either case, we have a perfect record. To be brief, case.
I liked the last game's writing a little better, but I don't really prefer one over the other. But if that was all I had to say about this game, I would without a doubt say it is better than Employee of the Month. Some of the chapters weren't too great, but it looked a lot better, it was somewhat longer, and it wasn't nearly as weird. But I've yet to mention 2 problems, and while one of them isn't too major, the other one changes everything I've said so far. The first problem is the voice acting. Yeah, the main cast delivers their lines pretty well, but I swear some of these minor characters are voiced by the programmers or something, because the delivery of some of these lines is awful.
What? A sea monster? Out of my way, I must protect the castle. Sorry, princess. I can't let you by. The king wouldn't approve.
Heck, even some of the major characters like Mindy have some pretty bad deliveries. The voice acting in the last game wasn't great either, but I could ignore that. You see, the last game really simplified things. You can double click an area to make SpongeBob run there, and you can do that in this game too. But the final problem is the removal of one of the most important and integral features from the last game. They removed a feature that was so obviously vital that I didn't even bother mentioning it in the last review, since I couldn't imagine them leaving it out. But in this game, they left it out. They left out the ability to skip dialogue. You see, in the last game, you could click while a character was talking and skip their dialogue, sort of like pressing X in Undertale. The character would move to the next line, and it really sped things up. This is vital since there is so much dialogue in this game. Both these games. I mean, in either game, every little object you click on launches SpongeBob into a rant about it.
That thing is scary!
And since each line of dialogue takes about 20 seconds for the voice actors to read, the game's length is almost double the last one's. I actively avoided talking to people in this game, just because I didn't want to waste 3 minutes of my life hearing them talk. And since this game loves to make you say everything you can possibly say to a character in hopes that it will get you something, I just stopped talking to a character, trying not to waste my time. It's like the butterfly effect. Removing the ability to skip dialogue ruins half the game. When the dialogue is bad, it's even worse since you can't skip it. I can't explore the large and cool world the developers made for me because I don't want to waste so much time. And repeated dialogue is all the worse since you can't skip what you've already heard.
What you doing? Right. Well, you see, Missy, I'll leave you to your insane muttering.
So in conclusion, this game was so close. It was so close to being the better game. It was so close to being more enjoyable. I genuinely think that a lot more effort went into this game than an Employee of the Month. Because it has a more SpongeBob-like story, it feels more natural than Employee of the Month, and so much of the game benefits from it. But the unskippable dialogue just destroys the game. I'm sure I would have hated Employee of the Month more if this feature was missing from it as well. But in the end, the removal of this key feature ruins the game for me. So overall, this game gets a 60 out of 100. It's not too bad, and if you really enjoy decent humor and the SpongeBob universe, and you can deal with the long-winded dialogue, then this game is definitely worth picking up if you're a fan of the movie and point-and-click adventure games. But this game's dialogue will severely hurt the experience for anyone else. So there's really only time for one more SpongeBob Month video. Of course, there are many different, very interesting topics I could do for this final video, but I know I've got to end this off on a bang, review some things that are really good, so why not the top 10 best SpongeBob-related videos on Nick.com.
So what happens when you smurge these two debonair studly Nick stars? Get in line, ladies.
How do I look?
Actually, I'm never doing that. Ever. Hey everyone, it's the Nuclear Reviewer here, and thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more of my content, you can click on the video to the left to see a video where I explain why A Pal for Gary isn't the worst episode of the series of SpongeBob. Or if you want to see a video by someone who actually has subscribers, you can click to the right and watch my friend Nintendo's review of Super Noobs. Either way, thanks for watching till the end of this video, and I hope to see you next time.